this morning that perhaps the fight is not simply for you to vanquish your enemies. The fight was designed to reveal you to you.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys today about our kind of people. We're dealing with episode 2. We're talking about, the fact that I love this little clip that we put in the beginning, which is the fight is sometimes to reveal you to you. This is the art and the way of the warrior. So we want to talk a little bit about episode 2 because there's a lot of fighting that was going on in episode 2, a lot of little battles that were going on throughout the course of this episode. And so we want to break it down from a different perspective. We're going to deal with the color schemes that are going on, and kind of bring you another story that you might have missed whilst watching the show. So if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the what uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. Stay hydrated. Out there are hot, okay? They're hot, and hot. You know what I mean? All right, let's get the intro going.
Little Black Book, you know what time it is.
All right then. Okay, so first thing I want you to kind of, be aware of is that throughout the course of the show, we saw Angela in yellow. Okay, several points in the show we saw her in yellow. I'll bring you to those points. The first point was obviously at the very beginning, which is a flashback.
So when those of us who survived the Middle Passage landed here,
and then we see her several times throughout the show. A little bit later on, she's on the phone to the hospital where she also is trying to get information about her mother and what happened to her mother. We'll have a little look here.
You good?
no, actually, but it's
slightly different yellow robe this time with a bit of red tinge in there as well. And then we see her on yellow again when Leah comes through and has a problem with her because she had spoken, I think she had spoken to someone about her business, etc. So we'll have a little look here as well.
realize I don't know that much about you or your business.
Again, we see her in yellow once more time. The very final time we see her in yellow again is the very end when she's talking to her aunt about the ball that they're going to, or the dance they're going to, and she's wearing yellow once more again, which is actually really I guess going back to the very beginning where there was a flashback, it puts us back into that space again. Now, the reason why I mentioned these particular things is because the color is on purposely put there for a reason. Last time we look at this.
I just need that interview.
And I'll meet you at the party with Mickey. Because the last thing that you need is a peanut gallery in the back seat when you go to pick up your
And she's in another yellow robe. Now, the reason why yellow is so important is because of what yellow actually represents. So when we're dealing with yellow, we look at the aspect of acquired knowledge. It is a color which resonates with the left or logic side of the brain, stimulating our mental faculties, creating mental agility and perception. But I like the first part, which is that it relates to acquired knowledge. This whole episode was about Angela figuring out why, more about her mother and how her mother had sold her for £50,000 to Teddy. This whole episode was about her trying to find out the results from the hospital about what happened at her birth. Okay, so it's very important, the acquired knowledge. So the yellow was very important because they found the room where they found all her mum's clothes at, and that room had all different types of clothes and everything like that. And that's also where she met her aunt a little bit later on, where her aunt kind of revealed that she knew that her mum sold her and she had to try and calm her down. So the yellow was very, very important. It was a very standout moments as well. Those key moments, the yellow before going to the dance, again, acquiring that knowledge now of the fact that, you know what, regardless of what happened with her mum and herself, she loves her mum, even though she's passed. She loves the fact that her mum, she's come to an understanding now that although her mum did pay the £50,000 in quote, or took the £50,000 in quote, it was only for a few moments, right? So she came to that realization and she went to the dance in power, okay? Or went to the little ball that they had in power, right? Then we get the yellow in the hospital, and this is really important because this is where she's trying to figure out on the phone, where she's on the phone calling the hospital the whole entire time, trying to figure out what happened to her. She's trying to acquire the knowledge to make herself be settled, be calm, so she can have a better understanding of what happened between her mom and her youthfulnism, right? Because every child wants to know their origins, wants to know the beginning story. They want to know why certain things happen when it doesn't work out for the way they wanted it to, right? And yellow also represents the creativity and the new ideas, helping us find new ways of doing things, right? It's about being practical rather than being a dreamer. And so in this episode, we see that, right? We see this aspect of her. And you know what's really interesting is that the yellow happens between herself, Leah, and Lauren. That scene where they're talking, where Leah comes into the house just after speaking to her father, busting into the house.
And I were released from the hospital after my birth. How can
This scene here is really interesting because what knowledge is acquired here is actually not knowledge that she acquires, it's actually knowledge that she gives away. So later on, when she's talking to Leah's mum, talking to Leah, they have a heart-to-heart about motherhood. And she begins to speak to her and tell her about motherhood is not easy, and, you should, take it easy on your daughter. There was acquired knowledge that was passed on in that moment, or at least there was an inquiry that was made from both parties saying, she's like, look, if I understood it, and if you understood it, if you get it before I do, pass it on to me. I want to acquire that knowledge too. I don't know, being a working mum is difficult, right? So this yellow is really intentional. It's really speaking its own language. It's really speaking strongly. And that yellow, again, like I said, is used when she's even talking to Tariq, when they're discussing the plans for her business. When they're talking about drawn up plans and how they want the space to look like for the shop and everything like that as well. So the yellow is used quite, pointedly throughout the whole of the show. And like the very first scene that we see is very important. And in fact, this happens in the next episode, episode 3. I'm filming this after watching episode 3, by the way. So this happens in episode 3 where they wear red. So you're seeing that the colors do mean something. It's a message in itself. It's communicating something in itself. It's a theme. And it's trying to run its own story in between, okay? And so, yes, that last scene where she's talking to her auntie before she goes to the ball or whatever, she's wearing that yellow robe before she goes and changes and goes and puts her proper clothes on, again, just speaks to the fact that, again, that's when she went with acquired knowledge. At that point, she understood, she forgave her aunt, and she said sorry because she came at auntie a different way. And it was really a touching kind of thing. Now, onto the actual show. Okay, onto the actual show. Let's start with the very beginning, the actual fight that happened. Okay, let's start with the actual fight that happened. Sorry, I've kind of gone a little bit too far there.
Can we get a little call and response?
I'm gonna go there in a second. So the message by the pastor, I think, by John Gray, is really important. Really important because it speaks to what this whole episode is about. The fight was to reveal you to you. Okay, the fight is to reveal who you are. Okay, and the fight that happens between Leah and between Angela is revealing who they are. It's revealing who they actually are. For instance, the mum's fight with the daughter, Lauren, is revealing that she has certain natures that are just like her mother's, just like her father's, where she's intolerant. And she struggles to relate to her daughter in those scenes, and we'll come and talk about it in a little bit later on. We see the same thing with Angela, failing to resonate with her own daughter. Those fights that they have with the similarity between the two sisters and their lack of ability to relate to their daughters, even though one has a father and the other doesn't. And the reason why is because what the father taught the daughter, didn't help in terms of emotional care. What it helped was in business, but it didn't help in relational issues. And so what you're seeing is both parties, Leah and Angela, have trouble relating to their daughters because what they were taught or what they weren't taught, better yet. Okay? So even though Leah has the father, she still wasn't taught relational issues. She was taught to be strong, to be independent, to be good, to be perfect. And those things she started projecting on her daughter. And what you see with Angela and her daughter is a struggle to actually relate on a level where her mum, Angela, is focused more on trying to get into the crowd, beat the crowd, than actually focusing on her daughter. And so her daughter keeps having these behavioral issues because she's being ignored. Okay? She's not being taken care of emotionally. Right? She's not getting that love and care that she needs from her mum. So back to that original piece. Let's go to it now.
Can I offer to you this morning that perhaps the fight is not simply for you to vanquish your enemies?
I want to pause there. I want you to notice what's behind them. What color is behind them? Yellow again. right? Because this is an acquired knowledge. What he's spitting out right now is knowledge of what? These two are fighting. What are they fighting for? They're similar. In fact, they're family. Okay, they are one. Okay, they are similar. They're the same. They share the same blood. They share the same father, right? And although they're fighting from different ends of the spectrum, they are very, very, very similar. And this fight that they're on a warpath. All right, they're in an inescapable war that they're heading towards one another, right? So, for instance, if you see later on, right? Let's go to here. This is how much the warpath has been designed for them. When there was another push here, let's just go here.
You get a little dirty.
Oh, okay. Then you're hired.
That damn Vaughn woman is a menace just like her mama.
That woman there speaking to Leah, saying that woman's a menace, is part of the instigation of bringing war to two sisters. That woman, the Bible says, listen, people who create animosity between people, God hates people like that, right? She is someone who's trying to instigate war between two people, right? She wants the two to argue. She wants the two to fight each other. We saw her in episode 1 instigating the exact same way, okay? Now, she may have her reasons, but she's instigating, okay? Now, so, and you heard the message as well by the pastor. He said, sometimes, you have to take it by force. Who was he speaking to here? Both parties, right? Because Angela wants to take it by force. Because why? She wants the birthright. She wants to be known. She wants to be loved. She wants to be cared. She wants her business to thrive. And she's going to take it by force. We actually see that in episode 3. And we're seeing, obviously, here as well that Leah, Franklin DuPont, is going to take it by force to make sure that Angela doesn't prosper, doesn't win. Because she's scared that she's going to come and take her throne, take her daddy's affections. What's she hoping for? She's annoyed because the person is going to come and be considered a co-equal to them, right? So the reason for the war is not important. What's important, what we're seeing is they're on a warpath and they are going to collide, okay? All right, so here's what happens next, which is really interesting, right? It's an interesting scene. Watch this.
We need to handle it so we can get back to more pressing concerns. Lauren's partying behavior is out of control.
Now, that part there is really interesting. I want to explain the next part after, but I'll address this as well. The woman's obviously trying to uphold again the moral standard or the moral code or the class code or the perfect image, which is really interesting because Leah's wearing white. And it's really interesting because white represents moral standard, purity, perfection, naivety, innocence, represents all those kind of things, completion, pure. It represents all those things. And yet what she's at the moment going through with this woman, it's not those things, right? The only thing she can hold on to is that as a woman talking about, oh, Lauren's going through this again, is about moral standing. It's about making sure you uphold the class, uphold the image. But it has nothing to do with being pure. It has more to do with the fact that you want to uphold a certain lifestyle, show everybody that you're perfect. And actually, the positive branding becomes negative because the motivation is wrong, right? So what happens next is really interesting.
I will not have her embarrassing this family.
Leah!
By the way, if you don't know who that is actually Raymond, her husband's mother, who's also a part of trying to keep the establishment and uphold the family image and name and all that kind of stuff, right? Reputation and all that kind of stuff. What's really interesting is the colors that Leah and Angela are wearing, okay? So Angela's wearing a very pinkish salmon kind of color, and this is important, and it's on purpose, because what she comes to do here is not fight. She comes to reason, right? She doesn't come to fight, she comes to reason. I'll show you here.
House to come here and floss when the families on this island hold it down all year long. Because we don't just have a summer fling with black excellence. We are black excellence.
So at this point here, you see Leah trying to almost project that, you're not of the level, you're not of the class, you're not of the standard that black excellence actually is. And this is why the white's important. You're not on the same level we are, okay? And you'd think that after a while, it turns into a little bit of a spat. And you think, oh, it's going to be one of those crazy fights between the two of them. But actually, it fizzles out. And the reason why it fizzles out is because Leah's not on that, right? She's going to choose a different method to come to fight, right? So let's have a look, right? Let's have a little look at this. Let me just go a little bit forward. There we go.
And my mama than you and yours.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that, Miss Vaughn.
So that was the end of their little fight. Just before that, how Leah actually approached, well, she didn't want to have a fight. Let's go back to it. Let me say, yeah.
We got off on the wrong foot last
You called
week.
me the maid.
You pulled my dead mother's police record.
Your mother didn't exactly have the best experience.
Now, the reason why I pulled that up is because what pink represents, salmon represents, it's empathy, it's love, it's nurturing, it's caring without much aggression. It's the feminine, okay? And that's what we saw in that clip when she first started. Now, obviously, of course, it gets a little bit later on. She, you know, they have a little exchange of words. But the opening part of it was not to have a fight. It was to come and have a discussion, have a talk, discuss. And again, they were showing a different side to Leah and Angela's confrontation. It wasn't so aggy. If you've seen episode 3, it's a bit different. And even later on in this episode, it's a bit different, right? Their argument's slightly different. Although we see throughout the episode that Leah's trying not to be as confrontational as she was in episode 1, right? My next thing I wanted to bring on to was also the conversation between the Harmon and Franklin DuPont. Raymond Franklin, sorry. Oh, so I say Raymond DuPont, I should say.
Especially this last quarterly report. Darman's on the road to recover what we lost last year.
No. We didn't lose anything last year. You lost that, Jack. A 120-year-old company, you almost destroyed it in one summer.
Now we get this lovely discussion between Raymond and I can't remember his name. What's his name? Jack or whatever. Harmon and DuPont, right? And they are the Greek brothers, right? I think that's how he described himself. They are the Greek brothers, half and half. I'm sure there's a Greek story behind this, but I didn't research it very well, so I need to go and research that. And if I get it, I'll bring it to you in episode 3. But there's a difference between the two of them and how they were raised, right? They were raised like family, but they were raised differently, right? Even though Raymond is part of the family, he realized that his counterpart never got the same. His counterpart got a different favor than he did, and simply because he was white, it's white privilege, and he's had to work much harder to maintain. Okay, and he spoke about how he, I think his name is Jack or whatever, never had to have consequences, and I think it's really important because it speaks to what we go through in life, and I think it's still trying to make that relativity that even in the Black excellence circle, even in a space where they are flourishing as black folk, there's still this white privilege. So they're not trying to alienate the story from what reality is. We're still having partly white privilege, even in a space where black excellence seems to be thriving. Because the world that we live in still has that as an advantage for skin tone and color. All right? And what's interesting is that they're talking about their business, and they're both in white because white represents new beginnings. And what Raymond was kind of saying, it was in a sense of that they're basically having a new beginning, right? Their business was faltering, but he's turned it around. It's almost like a new start. And now that Angela's going to get the business, they're basically going to get the company. No, not Angela, sorry. Now that Leah's going to get the business back, his wife, they're going to get the business back. Almost like it's brand new beginnings. Very, very important. Let's go a little bit later on. A little further down the line where we get I actually love this scene. It's between Leah and her father. Leah, Nikki, and her father. It's great.
Finally coming out of my father's shadow. Telling the world who I am. If I'm honest, I'm a little nervous about this. I'm sorry,
Now, what's really interesting is the colors white and blue, but what's really interesting is the conversation. Lauren is confused because she's never heard her mother be nervous about something, right? So there's this learning at this moment, right, that she doesn't realize her mom has go through things, and she's intrigued by that. And I think that's really speaking to the fact that as parents or as friends, brothers, sisters, whatever, sometimes we have an image of the other person because of what they've built up, the lack of vulnerability that they've shown, that we think they're a Superman or Superwoman. Oh, you're always strong. You've never cried. You've never, how do you do it? You've never, you hear those kind of terms from people. Oh, you're so strong. I've never seen you. And those things come because people want to build up a war of vulnerability because they believe the vulnerability is weakness. And so they display that to the outer world, and the outer world assumes they don't have no weaknesses. Right? And that's what her daughter's is feeling right now. What's really interesting is that the colors blue and white. Why? Again, the white represents the purity, the innocence, the naivety, the perfection. And again, that's what her mother's trying to portray. But also, again, the moral standard, the moral high ground. Okay? I'm more purer than you. And in a sense, that's what's been played here, because what she's saying to her daughter, as the conversation kind of goes on, is about the fact that, you know, she's saying, oh, I had to come out. And it's like, but you know your daughter's got to come out. Right? You know your daughter came out to you because you kind of saw her phone earlier on, right? And you saw your daughter liked another woman, and coming out is also representing, meaning when your LGBTQA community coming out, it's kind of like this kind of, you know, being who you are. And the mum is also inadvertently saying, I had to come out and be who I needed to be. And she's ignored her daughter's coming out by choosing the moral high ground. My coming out is much more important than yours, because yours is of a sexual orientation. Inadvertently, she hasn't really said that, but I think that's what kind of the message being shown here. The mother's inconsiderate nature in the way she looks at her daughter's orientation is now blinding her. Her continual push for perfection in her daughter rejects the imperfection she feels from her daughter coming out. Right? Because blue represents determined to succeed in whichever endeavor. It's about finding my own way to do the things I want to do, which is why both Lauren and her father are wearing blue in these particular scenes. All right?
Get nervous? I'm human too, baby.
Your first cover of Forbes lets the world know that you have arrived.
Now, what's important is the blues that they're wearing. She's wearing a much lighter blue. Whenever you wear lighter blue, it means you have less control, right? It's more to do with creativity rather than having more control. The blue in this particular instance, quite light, represents self-expression, okay? Blue represents loyalty, trust, integrity, tactfulness, reliability, responsibility, conservatism, all right? But the darker the blue, the more control and more power that person exhibits, oftentimes when we talk about color psychology, right? So the daughter wearing a lighter blue in comparison to the dad is really important. Again, it's a contrast of who has power. So in this scenario, I think they intentionally showed the mother and the daughter situation, and then the father and the daughter situation, where you saw how he flips the tables very quickly and who has the power. In fact, the whole conversation becomes about power. Does it not? Right? Which is such an interesting thing here.
I have been thinking about how I raised you, taught you, right at my knee. And here you are, standing in the lobby of our...
You know, her father's such an interesting character because, again, she chooses to be of the moral high ground once again, right? The moral high ground here was that she said, but you were the one sleeping around. You think I don't remember the fact that you went to that woman's house? You think I don't remember that you saw that young daughter? She tried to stick it on him because she thought she had a moral high ground, right? But her dad shows her, no, you may hold the moral high ground, but I still hold the power in our relationship. Don't you ever forget it, right?
It was wrong to sometimes dabble in the gray to ensure that power.
Gray, like how you cheated on my mother? Right, see, Daddy, I've been remembering.
See, so that the white represents that I am pure, innocent, I'm clean, I'm complete. The dabbling in the gray means an era of uncertainty. Dabbling in the gray means moving in a way that is not clean, that's not legal, right? It's illegal movements almost, in a sense. And that is what, in a sense, she's trying to say, I don't move like you. I don't do the things you do, right? But the trouble is, the trouble is here is that the moral high ground means nothing to him. Because all that matters to him is power. Absolute power, which is why the blue is there. And what she didn't realize was that actually it was a power move that he played with the Forbes thing right there and then. So we saw that how, again, the blue represents endeavor to succeed in any which way they want. He chooses to make a move on her at that point in that particular session where they are discussing their lives, and makes a move for the Forbes particular poster. Listen, hey, I mean, no one the guy is a smart guy, right? But he will never want to give up control. That's the kind of father he is. It's unfortunate. You get fathers who are like that, who are more concerned with power than they are with parenting. All right? More concerned with power than they are with parenting. I think another scene that's really important also as well is how this scene plays out in terms of the mother-daughter, how she's now wearing blue. All right? So now she's not taking a moral high ground, but she's also wearing blue as well. Let's
Love you. You look at her like she's...
I love her. Because I do.
You told me you would love me no matter what.
Now, what's really interesting is how they switch colors here, who's lighter and who's darker. Obviously, she's wearing a darker blue to the lighter blue. And what's really interesting is the emotion that the daughter shows in regards to the mother. The mother is almost seeming like she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to communicate. She doesn't know how to say what she wants to say. You know, she is almost, dare say broken. She is without an answer. She's not sure what to say. But in her midst of not sure what to say, she said a lot. And so her daughter's in a place where her daughter feels frustrated. And she's in this room, and the mother's saying, you know, you look at her like you must love her. And the mother is short of words, to the point that even when Angela comes in, she says only one or two words to combat what Angela's saying, but really doesn't really go to a war with her because she's not sure what to do in this moment. She's lost. So all that moral high ground that you were doing earlier on, now you're confronted with the actual truth that your daughter likes women. You are struggling. Let's have a look.
Here I am. Of course I love you, but I can't support this.
The perfection of their mother, the need to uphold an image, the need to be perfect and to be always right, to look like a champion all the time, will make you take an L in life, right? You will always take an L in life because you're consistently looking at images rather than the reality of what you're seeing. And that's where she's missing her daughter and where they're struggling to see one another. Okay. I wanted to focus on another particular scene, the kiss situation between... This scene was so deadly, bro. Like, I was confused. I don't know. It just came out of nowhere. So that's what... I think this is why it makes it really interesting. The kiss situation, I don't get why this guy is on things like that. I don't know why that was his thought. I'm not sure where that came from. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Mom? Oh my God. Lauren, wait!
Do they have history? Is this an old fling? Like, where did he get the confidence? The audacity to think to kiss your brother's girl or your half brother's girl, whatever kind of, you know, you see a boy as, his woman. What? I'm mad confused where this came from. Like, I don't know if they didn't explain that very well or whether they rushed it, but it just feels like it's for that. But anyway, dealing with the situation, this man seems like he's a failure at everything, or no, he's a mess up at the business, and almost as if like when you are guilty, you continue to do guilty things, right? You're not good at business, so you end up trying to do something better than him. You have jealousy in your heart, envy in your heart, and you try to take his girl to prove that you're better than him at something. Honestly, it's basic, but it can happen. But I didn't understand where this came from. And the fact that the daughter saw it and that led then to her being arrested, and the fact that obviously she arrested because Taylor accused her of being pushed, I just was like, what's going on here? What's really going on here? And all of this happened all of this happened just after Angela has almost like she freezes in time when she sees Teddy on the stage. But that leads to this very end scene where we see this conversation. And I love this conversation, right? Because you know me, I've been talking about, you know, the walls. You know, sometimes you ladies, we have on these walls. Some of you times, these ladies, we have on these walls, you know, that you want us men to break down. But episode 3 is a madness now. Now I've watched this and watched episode 3, I'm pissed. But anyway, all right, cool.
I just wanted to say sorry for how I left you at the ball. A lot of things happened tonight.
That's all.
I'm gonna say, is that all you're gonna say? Anyway, listen, it happens. Look, you know, she left him at the ball without a word, without saying anything. She just literally ran out of there. Said, "Do you, you know?" And he eventually said, "Do you have a thing with Teddy? Do you have a business with Teddy or something? Like, what is going on?" And because she's so closed off, he's not able to fully understand the decision making and the reason why she does what she does. And this is a very important lesson for anybody in relationships. Why do people do what they do? It's a key question. The why is more important because then it gives you understanding as to why a decision was made. Now, am I saying that works for every single situation? No. Does it work for every single person? No. But it does help to us to get a bit more better awareness of where that person is coming from, to have more empathy to where they could be going next. And it also helps as well, us as well, to not be so angry, right? If we're hurt by a situation or we're hurt by some understanding. And this, I think that's why God really does give empathy and patience to all of us. If you're not a Christian, this is my little section, because the God that we serve has full understanding of why we do what we do. Therefore, he has unlimited patience for his children because he understands every reason as to why. So whilst sometimes we don't even know, because the Bible says the heart is wicked beyond even our understanding and our knowledge. It's deceitful. He understands the heart. He can see it. He knows it. He's lived a life, been on earth, has taken on a human nature, seen it, felt it, experienced it in its wholeness, and can have unlimited patience. That's the God that we serve as Christians. But back onto the story, relationships are never easy. You know, relationships are never so simple. But what was brought up in this episode was her daddy issues, right? And the fact that she almost scoffed at, you know, Tariq's being taken care of, because she was like, how come he could take care of her? I mean, how come Teddy could take care of Tariq but couldn't take care of her? Why is it Tariq got brought into the family but she was left out in the cold? That's what she was experiencing.
They're not bad people, Angela. I've known the Franklin's for a long time. My father worked for Teddy, died for Teddy.
So she's confused by how the dad could, and this is normal, a daughter who's wondering how her father could look after another son who wasn't his, but couldn't look after his own daughter that was his. But she got sent away. And that in itself enlists confusion. That in itself promotes the pain that you'll feel. That in itself causes the person to question as to what manner of man is this? Why is it me that I'm different from everybody else? And so I want to leave it there and say, listen, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Let us know your thoughts down below. Comment in the comment section. Maybe you saw something that I didn't see. Let us know down below. Maybe you have some different thoughts to some of the scenes that you saw in the show. Let us know in the comment section as well. Like, share, subscribe. Click on that bell button for notifications. We appreciate you guys.
Little black, you know what time it is.